Disclaimer, this podcast discusses mental health. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you're struggling with your mental health, please remember it's okay to ask for help and seek the appropriate help through a qualified healthcare professional. Welcome back to the podcast where we ask the question, what makes you happy? My name is Jake Pearson, and today we have with us a healthcare innovator and educator who teaches healthcare professionals advanced history-taking skills so that patients get way better, faster, and permanently. Anne Griffin from Sisters, Oregon, United States. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm super excited to listen to your story and hear what makes you happy. But let's start with that. Tell me, Anne, what does make you happy?
I'd flip Maslow's hierarchy of needs on its head. Instead of seeking our primary goals to be food, water, shelter, our primary appetite is really meaning, having meaning in our lives. And in order to figure out what gives us meaning, we have to allow things to affect us. And that can be a positive sensation or a negative sensation. And that's what guides us to what coffee cup is your favorite, what relationships are really working, and what relationships really aren't. Are you in the right job for you? My best job isn't your best job, because we experience things differently, but you have to allow those things to affect you and admit this is affecting us. So we can then have accountability and be real with ourselves about what actually gives us meaning. So in my life, what brings me joy, what makes me happy, I have an amazing partner. I have two amazing kids. I love my work. It's a privilege to show up every day, both when I'm teaching as well as in my private practice. I get to do this. I don't have to do this. I get to do this, show up every day and change people's lives in a powerful, meaningful, and in a forever way. It's a gift. It's a great gift. I get asked all the time, aren't you so tired at the end of your day? Because my work is very physical when I'm at the office. I get so filled up because you just can't do this kind of work without receiving as well. Giving is receiving. And that in all ways, shapes, and forms my relationships, my work, my reading, my workouts, all of that fills me up with meaning and joy.
I really love that. And I've taken that question from what you've said, and I want to pose it to the listeners before we move on. What do you get to do in your life? And I'll just leave you with that. Think about what you get to do. What opportunity do you have that you get to do in your life? So our listeners, they struggle to find happiness. I know our audience very well, and they're listening to this because they're looking for ways to improve their day-to-day happiness and probably find that meaning like you've described as well. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them right now? If they were to come up to you on the street and say, hey, look, I really loved what you said. I'm struggling to find happiness in my life. What would you recommend?
Doing things for no reason, listening to that little voice that says, hey, we haven't made my favorite soup that Grandma used to make in a while. Oh, I don't want to go across town. Oh, the grocery store is going to be closed anyway. Listen to that little voice, and it gets louder and louder and easier and easier. And sometimes it'll tell you to do stuff that doesn't make any sense. Start to listen to the things that you haven't done in a while, or the things that you've never done. Don't order the same thing at the restaurant. Don't go to the same restaurants. Try things that you've never done before. Change how you do things.
Very well said. And listening to that in a voice, that small voice, and sometimes that's referred to, I think people like to say, their inner child, yeah? And I have myself not recently, but in the last few years, really paid attention to that voice and whatever it's screaming out to me. And if I've just moved into a house recently and it was like, oh yeah, all right, you must build your own veggie gardens. And I'm like, all right, let's go. I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to try anyway. And now I say to people, the thing that probably gives me the most joy at home is getting to work in that veggie garden. And if I didn't listen to that voice, I wouldn't have that thing that brings me so much daily happiness. So really lean into it, because you don't know where it's going to take you, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's as much of like a mystery, and really there's no wrong steps. They're just steps. You can always change your mind. I tried that veggie garden and it turned out to be more pain in the ass than I really thought it was going to be. You can always change your mind.
Yeah. There are forward steps, sideward steps, diagonal steps, backward steps, then turn left, then go whichever way you need to. to get where you want to be. And that's all I have to say with that. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all things that make you happy. We really appreciate all of your time today.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. We hope it gives you something to think about on your quest to discover what makes you happy. Make sure to check out whatmakesyouhappypodcast.com to connect with today's guest and follow us on all our social media platforms and to stay up to date at what's happening next at What Makes You Happy. Don't forget to share this episode with a friend, and we'll see you next time.